hate to tell you this, but you've been lied to. You know, there's social media posts out there that say, here's my top 10 plants that love zero light, or here's 5 plants that you can put into a windowless room or a windowless bathroom. I'm sorry, they do not exist. I cannot stand it when you see those social posts where people are trying to tell you that plants don't need light. In some way, shape or form, you need a plant to have a little bit of light. Now today, we are going to talk about plants that can tolerate a little bit of light versus those that will actually grow for you in a little bit of light or low light conditions. And the great thing is, usually plants that are better in lower light conditions are actually probably some of the easier plants to take care of. Honestly, there really are only a few plants that can tolerate the lower light conditions. I've heard ficus trees, rubber plants, aglaonemas. I've heard people suggest those love low light conditions, but in my experience, they don't. They can tolerate it a little bit, but then leaves fall off and the plant isn't doing very well and the plant doesn't grow and you think it's your fault when it's absolutely not. You've just been given the wrong advice. So before we get into the actual plants that can handle the lower light conditions, I do just want to explain what I mean by tolerate versus grow. If you have a plant that you put in low light conditions, for example, a philodendron, it might be okay in lower light conditions in your house, but you'll find these plants won't grow. If you keep it in a low light condition and it's not a plant that's meant to be in lower light, it will eventually, unfortunately, wither away and not succeed. But there are plants out there where you can put them into a lower light condition in the further corner of the house, and you will find that plants that are okay in lower light will actually grow for you. And that's really all you need. But caveat to all of that is, if you want your plant to thrive, if you want your plant to grow faster, you have to give it a good, decent amount of light. You need good lighting conditions, medium to bright indirect light, depending on the plant. I've got one of these plants here. You can see there's actually a little bit of light coming from the window. It's quite close to the window. Yeah, this plant here is meant to be a lower light condition. If you want a few more tips and tricks more than just lighting around temperature and humidity and all of that to make your plant grow faster, I have just finished a video. Have a look at it up here. Or is it this way? It's one of the others. Have a look at this. I'll leave a card for you. Go check that video out if you haven't seen it before. Okay, so let's get into the plants. And the first plant I'm actually going to talk about is probably the one I just mentioned, and that is this plant. This is called the ZZ plant. The actual name is Zimiculus zamifolia. I think that's how you pronounce it. Something like that. I'll make sure I've written it down here for you. This is one of the best plants for a lower light condition. And it actually also does come in this beautiful green. It does come in a really dark, like purpley black color as well. Again, really good for low light conditions. Or I think it also comes in a variegated form, which I would stay away from if you're going to put it into a low light corner. The one thing about this plant is not good if you're an overwaterer. If you like to water your plants often, you may want to consider not getting this one. It's beautiful. I absolutely love it. But the way this plant is set up is it has very thick stems, very thick leaves, and actually a very thick root, I think they're rhizome systems. So all the parts of this plant actually hold a lot of water. It is a beautiful plant for lower light conditions, but if you don't have a lot of light and you water it, that means the water won't evaporate quickly and you won't have to water it at all. Just be careful, don't overwater this plant. Okay, second plant I'll mention is the amazing golden pothos. Again, I've got it right here. It loves this little spot. This grows like a weed for me, honestly. And I have also mentioned in previous videos, this is a fantastic plant if you're a beginner. It is okay with a lower light condition. It is okay with inconsistent watering. If you forget to water it every now and again, it's okay. It's one of those easy, fast growing plants that just you can look after however you want, and you're pretty much almost certainly guaranteed for it to grow for you. And I do have a plant all about the top 3 recommended plants for beginners. Spoiler alert, that is one. Okay, so unless you've been living under a rock and this is your very, very first day on any kind of social media platform, you've probably heard of this next plant before. It is a snake plant, or what they call a sansevieria. I think it's also known as a mother-in-law's tongue as well, but I don't hear anybody call it that these days. Snake plants can also handle lower light conditions quite well. They will grow for you, but they will probably go very, very slow or just look like they're maybe even not growing. Now, I have had my snake plant in lower light, but then I decided I wanted it to grow a little bit more, get a little bit fuller. So I actually moved mine outside and it gets direct morning sun. So this plant can actually handle quite a variation of light conditions depending on where you want to put it. Now, a snake plant, again, just like the ZZ plant here, is one of those plants that holds a lot of water. If you feel the leaves, they're really, really long and thick if they're healthy, and they're really hard to bend, which means they hold a lot of water. And if you check the roots underneath the soil, you'll see they're really thick and bulbous stems, or rhizomes, I think they are. They hold a lot of water too. If you have overwater it, you will actually find the leaves start to droop, the water cells have burst, and it just doesn't have enough strength to hold itself up. I find snake plants actually do really well in a cactus soil or a cactus potting mix. So if you want to move your snake plant from a regular potting mix that you have to perhaps a cactus potting mix to help if you like to water it a lot, that will also help keep it thriving in a lower light condition as well. Okay, so let's move on to a couple of different plants that you probably haven't heard of in these kind of situations talking about low light. So one of them is ferns. Now, you can get a whole lot of different varieties of ferns. Some are very delicate, some have quite big, thick leaves, and some ferns are actually pretty good in lower light and other ferns are not. So 3 ferns that I know of that can do quite well actually in lower light conditions are the bird's nest fern, the staghorn fern, you know, the big thing. What I mean by putting it on the wall, I think that's why I did that. And the maidenhair fern, which is so delicate, but again, can actually do pretty good in lower light conditions as long as you've got enough water to give it. And I read somewhere the other day that ferns have been around for 300 million years or something crazy like that. So they've been around for a while. They know what they're doing. So I'm pretty sure they can handle all different types of light environments. And actually the maidenhair fern I find is very, very pretty. You just have to make sure you maintain the water because it does like a lot of water. And just a quick pause here to say that if you are liking this video and the content that I'm putting out, please do hit the subscribe button below and share this video out to people that you think these videos may be useful. And if you have already subscribed, a big thank you from me to you to helping me grow this channel. I'm having so much fun and I hope you are enjoying the content. Okay, next on the list, what's that? Four or five, I think we're up to 5, is lucky bamboo. I think it's also known as Chinese bamboo or Chinese water bamboo or Chinese ribbon plant or something like that. So even though it has all those names, actually a lucky bamboo isn't bamboo as such, it's actually a Dracaena. So the great thing about the lucky bamboo, because it lives in water, is not only is it a good low light condition, it's also a phosphate-fronting plant because you don't have to look after it very often as well. So it's low maintenance and low light. So that's even more of a bonus. And the reason why it's called lucky bamboo is because it has something to do with feng shui. And it's believed that if you have this plant in your house, it brings you good luck. Just one thing to know about this lucky bamboo though, it is meant to be toxic for pets or kids. Don't let them eat it, don't let them break it, don't let them play with it and mess about a bit. Just keep it safe. Okay, the next plant on the list, I've actually never had myself before, but it is an excellent low light conditions. Actually, it's probably one of the best ones in this list, one of the top 2, I would say. And have I mentioned this plant? Yeah, it's the cast iron plant. It's called the cast iron plant. It's also known as the Aspidistris something or other. Again, I'll leave the proper name. Because I didn't have this in my house, I wanted to show you an image of it. So I went to my local plant nursery and even they had it stuck in a corner behind a tree, underneath another tree, right out the back. Like this plant was in probably the lowest light condition in the plant shop. Poor little things, there was 4 of them compared to the hundreds of plants they have there. So it just says something about how tough and resilient this plant is. The thing about a cast iron plant is, again, it's another one of those plants like the golden pothos that is pretty good with inconsistent looking after. It's easy care. So it can handle temperature fluctuation, can handle watering fluctuations. That's hard to say. I should find another word for fluctuations. It can handle inconsistency in the way you care for it. And it's pretty easy care and it's pretty hard and tough. And again, with a name like cast iron, I imagine it would be. That's probably where it got its name from. It is such a tough little plant. 2 more on the list. And I've left these to the end probably because they're my favorite ones for the house. These plants can be quite beautiful in your house and give a bit of a jungly vibe. Number 7 is the spider plant. I was actually very surprised how low a light a spider plant can handle. I have 3 of them. I have one outside, I have one right up above me, and I have one right at the back of the room as well. And it handles the low light conditions really, really well. I do find you have to water them more often than some other plants, especially in summer and spring. And considering they actually have white on a lot of the leaves, because the leaves are usually a little bit white, like half white, half green, those kind of leaves on any kind of plant means you need a higher light condition. But on the spider plant, it's pretty good in low light. It's a pretty easy care, it's pretty low maintenance. And I must admit, the one thing I have noticed, especially on the spider plant outside, is it is a magnet for caterpillars. My plant outside is a little bit of a sacrificial lamb, so I keep it there and I just keep cutting the leaves, all the bit chopped off bits I just cut off. But it grows so fast and caterpillars love eating it, so it's a bit of a sacrificial lamb for me. Oops, I'm sorry plant, I'm sorry plant. My final plant that I'm going to be on the list, if you have seen these lists before, it's definitely one of those plants that people mention all the time, but it is the peace lily or the spathiphyllum. But I'm so glad they've come up with the name peace lily because spathiphyllum is the most ridiculous name to say sometimes. So I know that some people love a peace lily and some people don't, but I do find that the people who love a peace lily really do know how to care for it. And once you've got the care right for this peace lily, then the leaves can be beautiful and big and thick and luscious, and they bring a huge jungly kind of vibe to your home if you get it right. And you can actually buy a certain type of peace lily called the giant peace lily, which has even bigger like leaves. Peace lilies are actually one of those plants that you do find in some kind of tropical rainforest because the way it grows out and bushy, and it's used to being under other big trees and other big leaves and getting very dappled light, or again in lower light conditions. Probably one of the plants I have in the lowest parts, the lowest light parts in my house, what's another word? Low light? The darkest, that's the word I'm looking for. The darkest parts of my house, and it does super well. Peace lily does tell you when it's thirsty because leaves start to droop. Just be careful that you don't overwater a peace lily because they don't like to be overwatered. Make sure it dries out at least 2/3 and then water again. But when you water it, drench the thing. Absolutely drench it because it is from a rainforest and does love a good amount of water when it needs a drink. So there's the top 8 plants that I believe are the best for lower light conditions. If you do have a plant that you believe is good in lower light and it hasn't made my list, please do put it in the comments below and let the plant community also know what you would recommend and how you would look after that plant. I love people adding to any kind of updates. Maybe there's one plant I haven't really tried in lower light conditions yet. So thank you very much for joining me again. As always, I hope your week is full of leaves, love, and a lot of laughter. Have a great week, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Hello, Nosy. Hey, don't lick the... Gross.